officer ordered a soldier to lift a 60-kilogram wooden beam, but after being starved for so long, he barely had any strength left. He summoned every ounce of energy just to barely raise the beam. Standing nearby, another officer coldly told his men, "If he dares to drop that beam, shoot him on the spot." The soldier's legs began to shake, but he still refused to let go. It wasn't because he feared death. He was fighting for the last shred of dignity that had been trampled. Second by second, time dragged on. Through sheer willpower, he held on longer than anyone thought possible. His comrades were stunned by his endurance, their eyes filled with awe and respect. Even the enemy officer's face slowly shifted from arrogance to fear. At that moment, every prisoner stopped what they were doing and gathered around him, cheering him on. The man knew he wasn't just carrying a wooden beam, he was carrying the spirit of a nation. He looked the sadistic officer straight in the eye, his gaze firm and unshaken. He told himself he had to survive, because staying alive would terrify the enemy more than death ever could. With a final burst of strength, he raised the beam even higher, unleashing a power that couldn't be broken. Furious and humiliated, the officer grabbed his gun and struck Louis down. But even then, he couldn't believe what he'd just seen, that this man, after all the abuse, still hadn't broken. He could destroy Louis's body, but not his unbreakable will, and at that moment, the officer knew they were doomed. Louis lay motionless on the ground, but in his heart, he knew he had already won. Utterly defeated, the officer collapsed to his knees and wept. Not long after, they declared unconditional surrender. The POWs were gathered and marched to the pool, told they were going for a bath. Surrounded by armed guards, everyone knew this was going to be an execution. The enemy couldn't afford to let this story survive in history. Just as the order to fire was about to be given, a bomber suddenly roared overhead, interrupting the slaughter before it began. Cheers erupted. They had survived. Supplies rained down from the sky, and for a moment everyone basked in relief. But Louis, battered and weak, slowly climbed the stairs to the enemy officer's room. He wanted to see what kind of man this monster had become, but the officer, ashamed, couldn't even face him. He chose to flee. At long last, Louis returned home, dropped to his knees, and kissed the soil of his homeland. Then he embraced his family and broke down in tears.